America's empty land looks like a bargain until you calculate the hidden costs that make Death Valley seem like a budget-friendly vacation destination. While everyone's doom-scrolling Zillow and crying over million-dollar shacks, millions of acres sit completely empty across this country, some because they're literal hellscapes, others because nobody's brave enough to discover them yet. We've crunched climate data, calculated heating bills, and narrowed the search for land. We're ranking America's emptiest land from the absolute worst to the hidden gems of the American dream. So subscribe, because we're about to serve up brutal honesty about America's forgotten places. Starting our countdown in the place where your heating bill costs more than most people's annual salaries. Alaska's North Slope, where winter lasts longer than most Hollywood marriages and summer is basically a long weekend with mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds. This is land so empty that even polar bears pack up and leave for warmer climates. Your nearest neighbor might be an oil rig. Land prices look reasonable until you calculate shipping costs that would make Jeff Bezos reconsider his business model. Want a bag of groceries? That'll be $500, please, assuming the supply plane can land between blizzards and the pilot isn't having an existential crisis. Your biggest infrastructure challenge isn't finding internet. It's keeping your pipes from becoming ice sculptures for 8 months straight. The permafrost makes building foundations feel like trying to construct a house on frozen jello that occasionally melts and refreezes just to mess with you. Employment opportunities consist mainly of oil work that pays well, but requires selling your soul to fossil fuel overlords. Would you move somewhere where your biggest accomplishment is surviving another winter without losing toes to frostbite? Drop a hell no in the comments if you value your extremities. Central Kansas, where your biggest home security concern isn't burglars, it's whether your house will still be in the same zip code when you get back from Walmart. This is Tornado Alley, where Mother Nature practices her demolition skills every spring like it's a seasonal hobby. The land is flatter than a pancake and cheaper than therapy, but comes with annual weather events that make disaster movies look like documentaries. Your homeowner's insurance premiums will exceed your mortgage payments, assuming you can find an insurance company brave enough to cover property where acts of God happen more frequently than Kansas City Chiefs touchdowns. The soil is incredibly fertile, perfect for farming if you don't mind the constant threat of having your crops relocated to the next state by 200-mile-per-hour winds. Infrastructure gets regularly redecorated by severe weather that treats power lines like Christmas tinsel and cell towers like toothpicks. Your backup generator isn't a luxury. It's essential equipment for surviving frequent power outages that come with living in nature's bowling alley. Local news meteorologists are treated like celebrities because they literally hold life and death information about whether you should head to the basement or start updating your will. Storm shelters aren't basement additions. They're the most important room in your house. Your biggest annual expense isn't property taxes or utilities. It's replacing stuff that got blown away by weather. Would you live somewhere where your house might relocate itself without your permission? Hit maybe if you're into extreme home makeovers by Mother Nature. Kansas Tornado Alley is where the land is cheap, the soil is rich, and your most important investment is a bunker that doubles as your living room during storm season. Northern Maine has land that is cheaper than a decent used car. The winters are colder than your ex's heart, and the Blackflies have organized into military units that make summer outdoor activities feel like biological warfare with wings. This is wilderness living for people who think Alaska is too crowded and North Dakota has too much nightlife. The isolation is so complete that your nearest neighbor might be a moose with social anxiety. Internet service exists in theory, but operates on schedules that make dial-up seem lightning fast. Your Zoom calls consist mainly of frozen screens and apologetic explanations about why you sound like you're calling from the bottom of a well. Winter heating costs require budgets that would make oil executives feel guilty. Snow removal needs equipment that costs more than most people's houses and operators who aren't afraid of working in conditions that make Antarctic explorers seem underdressed. The Blackfly season turns outdoor activities into endurance tests that make military training look like spa treatments. Bug spray becomes a dietary supplement, and screened porches are essential survival equipment for anyone who wants to breathe without inhaling protein. The natural beauty is undeniable. Pristine forests, crystal clear lakes, and wildlife viewing that doesn't require zoo admission fees. The hunting and fishing are world-class, assuming you can survive the insects. Would you trade civilization for pristine wilderness if it meant fighting winged vampires every summer? Comment, bring bug spray if you're brave enough to try. The land may be affordable, the scenery is pristine, but your biggest predators have wings. The West Texas Panhandle is where the wind never stops blowing, the landscape is flatter than a smartphone screen, and your biggest entertainment involves watching tumbleweeds migrate to more interesting places. This is land so empty that even oil companies packed up their equipment and headed to places with more excitement. The wind is so constant that your house needs engineering normally reserved for skyscrapers, and outdoor furniture requires anchor systems that would make boat owners jealous. Your nearest neighbor might be a wind farm generating electricity for people who live in places with actual trees and coffee shops that stay open past 6 p.m. Your biggest social interaction involves waving at truckers on distant highways. The nearest grocery store requires military-level planning and fuel calculations that would make NASA proud. Water access depends on wells that tap into aquifers deeper than most people's retirement savings, while alkaline soil makes gardening feel like a chemistry experiment. The growing season is decent when the wind doesn't relocate your topsoil to Oklahoma. Your entertainment options include counting wind turbines, measuring wind speed, and placing bets on whether today's wind will be merely annoying or actively hostile. The local nightlife consists of watching the sunset, which admittedly takes forever when you can see for 800 miles in every direction. The sunsets are genuinely spectacular, painting skies that stretch to horizons so distant they make you question whether the Earth is actually round. Would you live somewhere where the wind never stops and your nearest entertainment is watching grass bend? The land is cheap in West Texas, but the wind and isolation is free. In central Nevada, the land is cheaper than a decent gaming laptop. The government owns everything out here, and your neighbors might be extraterrestrials or military personnel conducting experiments that officially don't exist, but unofficially explain those weird lights. The isolation is so complete that your nearest neighbor might be a secret military installation, and your biggest social interaction involves waving at aircraft that may or may not be from this solar system. Cell phone service exists sporadically, operating on the same reliability schedule as government transparency. Need water? You're in a bidding war with mines and the military for well rights. And guess who wins when national security or aliens are involved? The climate is surprisingly moderate compared to other deserts, with 4 actual seasons and precipitation that occasionally falls as snow rather than dust particles. The growing season is decent for desert plants and hardy vegetables that don't mind soil with enough minerals to start a geology museum. The night skies are world-class, offering stargazing that attracts astronomers and UFO enthusiasts in equal numbers. The lack of light pollution makes the Milky Way visible, assuming you're not distracted by unidentified flying objects that move in ways that violate several laws of physics. Would you live somewhere where your neighbors might be from another planet? Comment, "Take me to your leader," if you're ready for close encounters of the property-owning kind. Eastern Montana, where the sky is bigger than most people's entire worldview and the land is cheaper than a decent used Honda. This is prairie living for people who think North Dakota has too many people. The agricultural potential is excellent, with soil that produces impressive crops when weather cooperates and hail doesn't practice demolition on your fields. The isolation is manageable, with small towns scattered like islands in a sea of grass that stretches beyond your ability to see or comprehend. Water is generally reliable through wells that don't require drilling to the Earth's core, and mineral rights often come with surface rights, creating potential for additional income if someone discovers oil under your wheat fields. Wildlife viewing is spectacular, with deer, antelope, and occasional elk treating your property like their personal highway system. The hunting and fishing are world-class, assuming you don't mind traveling reasonable distances to find water bodies larger than stock ponds. The cost of living is genuinely affordable. With property taxes that won't require selling body parts, the infrastructure exists and functions most of the time, though you'll need reliable vehicles for trips to town. Your biggest decision is whether to farm, ranch, or just enjoy having more space than most people thought existed. Would you trade traffic jams for cattle crossings and skyscrapers for endless sky? Hit yes, if you think horizon-to-horizon views beat urban claustrophobia. The land in southern New Mexico is affordable. The chili peppers are legendary enough to cause religious experiences, and your biggest cultural decision is red or green sauce with every meal. The climate offers 4 real seasons with enough rain to support agriculture that doesn't require selling your firstborn for water rights. The cultural richness includes Native American and Hispanic influences that create communities with actual character rather than just gas stations and Dollar General stores. The food scene offers authentic cuisine that would make food critics drive hundreds of miles through the desert just for a proper meal. We're talking about chili that's so good, it's literally the state question: red or green? Water access is manageable through wells and irrigation systems that don't require engineering degrees to operate. The isolation is moderate, with small towns offering basic services and communities where people actually know each other's names. The cost of living is reasonable, with property taxes that won't bankrupt you and utilities that function reliably most of the time. The state tax is favorable for retirees and people living on fixed incomes, making it attractive for people who want to stretch their money. The landscape includes everything from desert to mountains within reasonable driving distances, offering recreational opportunities that don't require fighting crowds for parking spots. Southern New Mexico, where the land is affordable, the culture is rich, and your biggest life decision involves chili pepper preferences that locals take more seriously their careers. Central Wyoming scenery looks like a Windows screensaver that someone actually paid to photograph, and your biggest neighbors are probably cattle who have better property boundaries than most suburban developments. This is ranch living for people who want space, without sacrificing all connection to civilization or indoor plumbing. The agricultural potential is excellent for ranching, with natural grasslands that support cattle operations and soil suitable for hay production. The isolation is perfectly balanced. You can have privacy and space while maintaining access to towns with actual services rather than just abandoned buildings and tumbleweeds. Your nearest neighbor might be a mile away, creating privacy without total disconnection from human society. The climate offers 4 distinct seasons with enough rain to support ranching. Wildlife viewing is world-class, with elk, deer, antelope, and occasional moose treating your property like their personal preserve. Your cost of living is reasonable, with property taxes that reflect actual services rather than bureaucratic bloat that funds things you never use. You'll need reliable vehicles for trips to larger towns for supplies and social interaction. The hunting and fishing opportunities are excellent, with access to public lands that extend your recreational options beyond your property boundaries. Your entertainment includes activities that don't require Netflix. Would you trade suburbia for ranch life if it meant dealing with actual seasons and wildlife that doesn't come from the zoo? Comment "Yeehaw" if you're ready for authentic Western living. Eastern Oregon has surprisingly diverse scenery. Your biggest discovery is that Oregon offers more than Portland rain, hipster coffee shops, and people who take kombucha brewing more seriously than most people take their careers. This is high desert living with actual potential for people who thought Oregon was just liberal politics and overpriced lattes. The climate is more moderate than expected, with 4 seasons that include modest rain that don't require survival gear for basic outdoor activities. The isolation is moderate, with small towns providing essential services and communities that maintain genuine character rather than corporate chain store uniformity. The recreational opportunities are excellent, with access to national forests, hunting, fishing, and outdoor activities with few crows and free parking. The landscape includes everything from desert to mountains within reasonable driving distances. Your cost of living is genuinely reasonable, with property taxes that won't require selling organs and utilities that function reliably most of the time. Oregon has no sales tax, though income taxes exist for those with significant earnings. Your nearest neighbors are close enough for community events but far enough for privacy when you want to practice your guitar without judgment. The local culture includes people who moved here intentionally rather than people who got stuck here accidentally. Would you consider Oregon if it didn't involve Portland traffic or mandatory organic everything? Hit surprised if you didn't know Oregon extends far beyond the stereotypes and actually offers reasonable living options. Northern Arizona has modest land prices. The climate is just right like a real estate fairy tale, and your biggest decision is whether to focus on mountain views or desert sunsets. This is high country living that offers the best of multiple worlds without requiring multiple mortgages or selling your soul to real estate speculators. The elevation provides 4 actual seasons with temperatures that doesn't require industrial air conditioning. Soil quality supports everything from gardens to small-scale farming operations. The isolation is perfectly manageable, with small towns providing essential services and larger cities within reasonable driving distances. The recreational opportunities are world-class, with access to national forests, hunting, fishing, and outdoor activities that change with seasons rather than requiring expensive gym memberships. The landscape diversity includes everything from pine forests to red rock formations. Your cost of living is reasonable, with property taxes that reflect actual services and utilities that function reliably without requiring backup generators or prayer circles. Arizona doesn't tax retirement income, making it attractive for people living on fixed incomes. Would you move somewhere that offers 4 seasons, reasonable costs, and scenery that doesn't require Instagram filters? Drop perfect if this sounds like the sweet spot. East Texas has trees that actually exist without requiring irrigation systems, and your biggest surprise is discovering that Texas has forests that don't look like they're auditioning for post-apocalyptic movie sets. This is southern living for people who thought Texas was just oil derricks and tumbleweeds. The climate offers 4 seasons with adequate precipitation that supports agriculture, forestry, and landscaping. Water access is excellent through wells that don't require drilling to the Earth's core or taking out second mortgages. Soil quality supports everything from timber operations to vegetable gardens that actually produce vegetables instead of expensive compost. The recreational opportunities include hunting, fishing, and outdoor activities that don't require traveling hundreds of miles or fighting crowds for access. The timber provides natural beauty and potential income through harvesting that doesn't require clear-cutting your entire property. Your cost of living is genuinely affordable, with property taxes that won't bankrupt you and utilities that function reliably. Texas has no state income tax, making it attractive for people wanting to keep more of their earnings instead of funding government programs they never use. Your cultural experience includes authentic Southern hospitality without the tourist markup or crowds of people taking selfies. Would you consider Texas if it involved trees, water, and reasonable costs beyond oil and attitude? Comment, "Y'all surprised me," if this changes your Texas assumptions. Taking the crown as America's best empty land value is the Tennessee Valley region. The climate won't try to kill you seasonally, and your biggest advantage is discovering that space, beauty, and civilization can coexist within reasonable distances. The climate offers 4 distinct seasons that support agriculture, gardening, and outdoor activities year-round, without requiring specialized equipment. Water access is excellent through reliable wells, springs, and surface water that doesn't require complex legal negotiations. The isolation is perfectly balanced between privacy and space, while maintaining access to towns with full services, medical facilities, and cultural amenities that don't close at 6 p.m. or require driving across state lines. Your nearest neighbors are close enough for community events and borrowing tools, but far enough for solitude when you want to practice your banjo or light bottle rockets. The area has plenty of hunting, fishing, hiking, and outdoor activities that don't require traveling across multiple states. The natural beauty includes forests, streams, and landscapes that change with seasons. Your cost of living is reasonable with property taxes that reflect actual services and no state income tax. Would you choose balanced living over extreme isolation or urban chaos? Hit perfect balance if this sounds like the sweet spot between hermit life and city stress. From Alaska's frozen money pit to Tennessee's perfect balance, America's empty land proves that cheap acres can either be financial sinkholes or hidden opportunities. The difference comes down to water, climate, infrastructure, and whether you're chasing peace and space or just running from high prices. Choose wisely, because the wrong bargain might cost you more than the land was ever worth.